Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and today we are going to talk about the Chord Mojo 2. This is typically about a $750 portable headphone DAC amplifier. This was a self-purchase with channel money, and currently it is on sale at a number of retailers for about $650. I will try to link to some of them in the description down below, and some of those may be affiliate links, and if they are, I will label them as such. All right, I filmed this video as we are rapidly approaching Thanksgiving here in the United States in the year 2023. So the price of $650 is likely a holiday season markdown. So when you watch this and you are interested, might be a good time to move on it there. Okay, but Chord has no knowledge that I have this unit. All thoughts you are about to hear are mine and mine alone. And if you like this product and you want to support the channel and you use one of those affiliate links down below to do that, just know that all affiliate link money that I have made on this channel so far has gone right back into the channel to pay for shipping costs and support gear like microphones, lights, and that sort of thing, and buy cool stuff. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and do shameless self-promotion, and then we will talk more about the Chord Mojo 2.
Hi, I'm Wave Theory's human companion, and he wants you to know that your support of this YouTube channel helps keep the reviews coming. If you enjoy Wave Theory's honest, thorough style, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the links in the description below to sign up for the Patreon or send him a tip through PayPal. All right, enjoy the musings.
I've been wanting to get a Mojo 2 in here for a while for a variety of reasons. One, I generally like Chord products, and so I was curious to see if this continues to carry the torch for me on that, and like, do I enjoy the Chord sound at this price and all that. Plus, I've just heard good things about this throughout the community, and so that raises my curiosity level and wanting to check it out. Another big motivating factor, though, is the fact that this is a single-ended device here between $500 and $1,000 US. And if you've been following my channel recently, I have been reviewing a lot of DACs in the $500 to $1,000 US price range, and many of them are balanced. This one is among the few that are not, and so that makes it interesting. Like, does this become a good rock-solid option to use in either a desktop or two-channel situations as a single-ended device as well at that price point, okay? And so this is my third such device that's single-ended there. The others are the Socris DAC 1421 and the Black Ice Audio Glass FX that I will link to my reviews of those two down in the description below as well. So those were the interesting parts to me, and so I will try to answer that question here in this review. Like, is this a solid single-ended DAC at the price point? And then, is it a solid OTG/transportable option to take your music on the go, or to at least make your music transportable and take it to another location, you know, like a hotel room or whatever if you're traveling for work, and have a good listening experience, okay, in that sort of setting? I will also try to talk use cases about this thing. Like, are you better off getting something like this or a DAP if you're looking at on the go or transportable use? And then I'll also give a few comments on how well the Mojo 2 here stacks up to its big sibling, the Hugo 2, also from Chord. So all of that coming up in this review. So use the timestamps down below to jump around and to see the parts that are most relevant to you. So with that, let's talk specs. Okay, so this device here will decode most things two-channel audio. It is good for PCM sampling rates up to, I believe it's 768 kilohertz. It's at least 384 kilohertz. Okay, and up to 32-bit bit depth. Okay, on that as well. It will also do DSD and all of that from the USB input. It has Toslink and coaxial SPDIF inputs, and the coaxial input on it as well is compatible with Chord's M-Scaler if you really want to go nuts with this device and you use it that way if you want. The output power on this thing is pretty impressive for a unit of its size, at least by spec. It is rated at 600 milliwatts of output power at a 30 ohm load and a 90 milliwatts output power at a 300 ohm load. It also has options in here for crossfeed, and crossfeed is a thing where you take a little bit of the left channel and you bleed it into the right channel and vice versa. And in theory, that helps with like stereo imaging and spatial presentation and all of that. It also can help take some of the pressure off your ears if you listen to a lot of older, early stereo music where they did some crazy hard pans where they would put like all of the vocals on one side and all of the instruments on the other side. Because when you wear headphones or IEMs, all that, like sound coming from just one side can feel a little uncomfortable, and crossfeed helps alleviate that somewhat. There's also a fairly extensive set of equalization options in here too. So this is a DAC, a headphone amp, a little crossfeed circuit, and an equalizer, okay, all in this one tiny little box, okay, if you are interested in those things. All right, so what we're going to do now is we will cut to an overhead view of this where I will talk about the build of this thing up close and personal, show you the inputs and the outputs and like what all of these buttons do here and all of that. So let's go ahead and cut to that. Quasi-overhead view of the Mojo 2, just because it is a small unit and I want to be able to show you the features and the build up close and personal like this. So, think the case is plastic, maybe it's metal, but it's quite durable, okay, and there's not a lot of noise when you rap on it with the knuckles. Okay, looking around, we've got the Chord, we've got Mojo 2 written on here, info on the back, nice rubber feet here. Okay, let's talk I/O and then we'll get into the buttons. All right, so here is the input side of things. You have a 3.5 millimeter TRS coaxial jack here. So this little $700 unit is actually compatible with the M scaler with a dual coax output here because of the TRS coax input. It works fine with just a TS connection on the coax as well. We see 3 USB jacks here. You get 2 flavors for USB signal, like to connect to your computer or your DAP or your smartphone or whatever. Okay, you have USB-C right here and then micro B right there, and then we have micro B for the charging there, and then we have a Toast-Link optical input as well going on there. All right, there is no like switching inputs on this unit that I know of, and like this is talked about in the owner's manual of the Mojo 2, is that it is set to default to different inputs. So whatever it first detects a signal from is what it will latch onto, or if you have multiple things plugged in at once, there is a hierarchy, and I'm probably going to get this wrong. It is in the user's manual if you need to know what it is, but like I think USB is first, and then maybe the coax, then optical, and so forth. But there is a hierarchy there that you should be aware of. So if you want to use this in a desktop situation, just know that you're probably just going to want to favor one input, or you're going to have to physically switch out different inputs if you have multiple sources you want to use. Okay, the opposite end of the input panel, we just have 2 3.5 millimeter TRS single-ended headphone outputs. They are 2 identical outputs. The owner's manual does say it's perfectly safe to use both of these at the same time, but you do not get independent volume control, just one volume control for the 2 units there. All right. Then we have the buttons here, and you see how they're labeled. Like we get a power button here, and I'll go ahead and power it on. Okay, and you can see it go through its warm-up cycle where it flashes different colors and all of that before it's ready to go. All right, what we have here basically is the power button, 2 selector buttons where you see plus minus there, and then we have like a menu button, basically. I think they call this right here. So when this is ready to go, right, this right here, like you see the power button there goes dark. When this plays music, this will glow with a different color that corresponds to different sampling rates. Like for example, red is like 44.1 kilohertz and green is 96 kilohertz, so on and so forth. Okay, Then you've got color code here on these two buttons right here that indicate wherever the menu button is set. When it is at just this white color right here, it's volume, okay? And you can see how the colors of the buttons change as you increase volume or you decrease volume. It just steps through the colors of the rainbow, basically, where red is soft, and then as it gets closer and closer, it'll eventually go white, and that's very loud. But you can also cycle through different options here, and I don't remember what all of them are, but there are options for things like EQ and crossfeed and all of that as you step through the different menu options right here. A bunch of different functions. I'm not going to go through all of them, okay, but like that's how you get to it, all of that. So as best I could, okay, I basically tried to keep all of the special stuff off for listening, like no EQ when I did, testing the DAC output, no crossfeed, no anything like that. Just keep it in like its standard stock config, okay, all of that. But there are lots of little sound shaping options because again, you get like EQ, you can have crossfeed, you can do all of that kind of stuff, okay, on here to play around with to kind of suit to your taste here. So I mean, this thing is interesting in that like you can move it away from the house sound or the stock signature fairly easily if you want to. So all of these lights do come with a bit of a learning curve, and again, it's in the user's manual what they all mean, but so it takes a little bit to get used to like what all the different colors mean and what's going on, but once you get there, it does become very easy to read. But really, that is the unit itself. So let's go back to me on camera and we'll talk about build and sound and other kinds of things. Here we go. All right, we're getting close to being able to talk about sound, but as usual, we need to talk about the test gear that I used with this thing to give it some good quality listening time. So I mostly used the headphone amplifier section in this to actually drive headphones. It works fine for IEMs. It's got plenty of output power for IEMs. It is also dead quiet in the sonic background for IEMs and all of that, if that matters to you there. I just am not a particularly big IEM user, but I did try a variety of headphones on this thing. And those include the Austrian Audio Hi X60, the Focal Radiance for closed backs to use in like at the office and that sort of thing and see how they sounded through here. And then I used a variety of other open backs as well here, like the HiFiMan HE1000 SE was a high-end headphone that I plugged into here. I also use this to drive the HiFiMan Edition XS because that's a little bit more difficult load and I wanted to see how this handled that. More on that in a moment. Also tried the Mastrop plus Sennheiser HD6XX and the HiFiMan Ananda Nano. Got some time on here as well. Again, direct from the headphone outputs on here. Okay, I also tried using a Y cable, plugging from one of the headphone outputs, okay, into a stereo pair of RCA outputs there. And this would directly feed a couple of different amps. One of them was the Erzatich Perfitus. This got some time going into the HiFiMan Golden Wave Prelude amplifier, as well as a little bit of time into the Headamp GSX Mini. All right, and then from there I would use a variety of headphones, like through those more powerful amps and all that. I would listen to this as a DAC for like Susvara, Utopia, the original Utopia, things like that. Things that are harder for this to drive, but also are just like really high-end headphones to give me an idea of how well this performed as a DAC. Source gear on this, I used direct USB plugged into my Microsoft Surface Pro 4 laptop, which is a Windows 10 based machine, using the audio player Ottervana, which would play local lossless FLAC or high-res FLAC files, local DSD files, or stream lossless FLAC or high-res FLAC from Qobuz. Here at home, I would also connect the coax input here into my Singer SU6, which is in turn fed by a Sonor Ultra Rendu, which is used as a Roon endpoint to stream all of the same kinds of files I just described in the other setup. All right, so we need to break into pieces then the performance of this. Let's just talk about its drive, its ability to power full-sized headphones for one, because I think there will be a segment of people out there interested in that. And again, if you are an IEM user, you don't need to worry. This is going to sound wonderful with IEMs. It will have more than enough power. It has a really quiet noise floor, vanishing noise floor, really. And it also has very low crosstalk and all of that. So it is an excellent option if you are a fan of IEMs. But as far as the full-size headphones go, the two that I was most curious about would be like the Sennheiser HD6XX, because that is a 600 ohm, or excuse me, a 300 ohm headphone. So I wanted to hear a high Z output on this, and it did great. Okay, it really powered the HD6XX quite well. It got plenty loud, but the bass was nice and full, all of that. And that's one of the things that happens with the HD6XX or the HD650 when they are underpowered, is they get a little bit thin, a little bit anemic in the bass, and they lose some of their bass extension. This actually did a really good job with those traits, and I think it powered the HD6XX pretty well. I still prefer the HD6XX from a good tube amp, but power was not the issue with that here. Likewise with the Edition XS. The Edition XS is kind of a medium efficiency planar headphone. It's right around $500, which I think is around a price point that a lot of people might pair something like this with. And I did not notice any power issues there. It was like it was a lot of good, full, punchy bass. Okay, big soundstage, lots of control and detail and that sort of thing. Like the Edition XS sounded like the Edition XS is supposed to sound to my ear. So this is going to drive a fair number of headphones, I think, pretty well. Now, you don't want to slap an HE6 on here. It's not going to push Susvara, okay, that kind of thing. But for a lot of realistic headphones anyway, realistic driving headphones, this did a really good job. So the headphone amp in here is pretty effective for full-size headphones, if that is of interest to you. Okay, now let's turn our attention to like what is the sound signature on this thing, what is it good at, where might it need to be better, that sort of thing. Okay, so it sounds pretty good. All right, let's get that out there in front, like out there up front. Like this is a very fine sounding piece, both from the headphone output and used as just a DAC. It does deviate a little bit from my experience with the Chord house sound previously. Like I have the Hugo 2 around, I have reviewed the Cutest and that sort of in there, and both of those were a little bit like they were, they're a step up from this one. This one is a little bit more relaxed and laid back in its presentation as compared to its bigger siblings in the Hugo 2 and the Cutest. Okay, this one also is a little bit warmer. Again, taking all of the EQ options out and just going with the flat output on it, making sure crossfeed is off and all of that. This one is just a little bit warmer, smoother, and more laid back in its presentation than the Cutest is, and especially the Hugo 2 is. Okay, to me, in terms of warmth, I think this one is the warmest of those three, then Cutest, then Hugo 2 in there. And again, not using any of the digital filters on any of those, and no EQ or anything like that, just the stock default setting on all of that. Okay. Again, using it as a DAC there and all of that, like the sonic background is basically black void. Like this is extremely clean and quiet, okay, in there as well. It's also big in soundstage. Like it has that in common with the other Chords I've heard. Very large soundstage. It also has a fairly dynamic and lively presentation. Like there's some good bass impact and slam and that sort of thing, good bass extension and so forth, but it is not quite as energetic or active or lively as the Hugo 2 or the Cutest and all of that. That's why I say it's a little bit more laid back in its presentation than some Chords that I have heard before. But now going into detail about the tonality and all of that is a little bit of a challenge because there are so many EQ options in here. Again, it tends towards just a little bit more warmth than Hugo 2 or Cutest, it might roll off the treble, like, and when I say warmth here, it might not be because there's a little bit of extra emphasis in like the mid bass and kind of that warmth region. I think it might actually be more of the fact that it's a psychoacoustic effect of like rolling off the air frequencies just a little bit. So there's not as much sparkle or bite on the top end of this one as there can be from the Hugo 2 or the Cutest or that sort of thing. But this is still a mostly neutral presentation from a tonality and frequency response standpoint. The tonal balance is pretty excellent though. Like I didn't notice any shoutiness or honkiness coming through here. The treble, like cymbals, are very well tonally balanced. There's pretty good and natural relationship between fundamental frequencies and harmonics and that sort of thing on it too. Okay, then again, let's like the big soundstage. I want to come back to that because like most chords, it does throw a very big soundstage, and then it does a pretty good job of imaging in there. Where it does fall off, and again, this is because of the price differential between that and the Hugo, this and the Hugo 2, is it doesn't separate spatially as well as its more expensive siblings, which we shouldn't expect it to. It does a pretty good job for a unit of this price, but it's like stops a little bit short of like being really three-dimensional or holographic, though it does do a pretty good job at the price point, okay, of those things. All right, so yeah, it sounds very good, mostly neutral presentation and all of that. The EQ options on it here are pretty robust though, and gives you a fair level of control. There are like preset frequency ranges where you can make adjustments, but you get a fair amount of control within those presets in terms of how much you want to raise or lower the presence of that frequency range. And so that I think was a smart thing to do for this device, because like using an on-the-go setup or a portable setup, you often lose the option of being able to carry with you multiple IEMs or multiple headphones or something like that. You know, like I have a whole wall full of headphones, okay, hanging up over there off screen, and you know, that's difficult to take with you when you go on the go. So I think the EQ options in here, they are extensive and they are helpful. Okay, in there, they can really help match this thing to IEMs and headphones more effectively than if they weren't there. So again, going a deep dive into the tonality beyond the stock setting, it can't really do because it is very adjustable and flexible in that way. And some users will really appreciate that. So that's here for those who want it. Okay, all of that. So then, like, turning our attention to like, you know, we talked about headphone drive. How is it as just a desktop DAC? And it's pretty good, right? Like those sonic traits that I just described, like it holds its own here at the price point as just a DAC. So an option that you have with this piece that is very unique to the price point is that it's perfectly comfortable being a 2-channel or a desktop DAC. In fact, it even has a power mode that when you leave it plugged into power for 24 hours, I think it is, it will set itself to like 80% battery charge, okay, and then hold that level at 80% and then just be in desktop mode. But then you can just unplug it from desktop mode anytime you want to go and take it out to a secondary location, okay, put it in your suitcase, take it to your hotel room when you travel and all of that, okay, works fine in those settings too. So like in terms of use cases, this offers a lot of flexibility in terms of you can use it on your desktop or 2-channel system just fine, and then you can take it with you on the go. So then let's do some quick comparisons there for just its DAC performance. And I'm going to do a more detailed comparison with other DACs in there, because this is one of the last pieces I wanted to get to for a big mid-fi DAC roundup. But I am going to say that it pretty much holds its own. I think in terms of overall sound quality, this one comes very close to and is like right at home with like an SMSL DO300 DAC, which I have reviewed, linked down in the description, as well as like the Gishelli Labs J2S with the Sparkos, I think it's 2502 op amps. I also have a review for that, which I will link to down below. I would say that sonically, this one is like right on the level with DACs like that from their balanced outputs, but you get that level of performance from a single-ended output here, which I think is nice because there are so many single-ended amps like tube amps and speaker amps and all of that out there that are priced close to where you might want to use this with them. Okay, Now, it does not, to my ear, quite catch the slightly higher tier there in the mid-range. Like, I don't think it quite catches the Shit Bifrost 2/6.4 or like the Glass FX, the Black Ice Audio Glass FX in terms of, or the like the Denafrips Aries 12th Anniversary Edition in terms of just raw sound quality as just a DAC. Okay, I think it's more closer to the SMSL and the Gishelli that I just named a moment ago. Okay, but that's still pretty good company to keep sonically here, okay, at the price. And then of course this also adds in the EQ options and the on-the-go and, you know, transportable options that those other two don't either. All right, let's talk a little bit more about use cases then. Like, should you use this here as like, should you buy one of these, use this as an on-the-go or transportable option, or should you get a DAP, okay, or something of that nature? And that, I think, is going to depend a lot on like what kind of listener you are and how you want to use these things. So this on its own does not play any music directly. Like, you have to plug this into a music source of some sort. There are no SD card slots or anything like that. You can connect this to Chord's Poly little streamer and be able to play music locally and control it from your phone that way, okay, or stream over Wi-Fi. But on its own, it can't do that. So that's one advantage that a DAP will have, is that a DAP you can take your actual music files with you, or you can download a streaming app and use that as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi or whatever. Okay, so that is one thing you have to consider. How do you want to handle your on-the-go usage there? If you're going to travel with a laptop computer and you just need a really good quality DAC and amp to use with that, then you're probably coming back to something more like this. Okay. Other considerations, let's just talk a little bit about like, where does this fit in? Like, for instance, this DAP right here is my KN N6 Mark II. It's a little long in the tooth right now. It has the EO2 module in it. Okay, I think the Mojo 2 sounds better. It's got more power, it's got more drive, a little bit more dynamic impact and lively kind of presentation to it. Okay, and it just a little, you know, more detail, more imaging, more separation, like that sort of thing in its sound over this. But this has an SD card slot on it right here, okay, and it can also stream music directly and all of that through there. So now I could use the USB output of this into here and use both if I wanted to. That is an option, though I don't think I would do that with a DAP there, because a DAP, you know, has a decent headphone amp in it, okay. I would take this, the sonic performance of this over like the FiiO M11 Plus DAP, for example. And it's been a long time since I've heard it, but it's the Hibby RS6, I believe, I had a review of, and that sounded really good, but my money was on that this is going to sound just a little bit better than that. So this, I think, is a little bit better in pure sonics of DAPs that are like between its own price and about $1,000, but that's because like this doesn't have to have a computer in it, or, you know, a micro SD card slot, or an operating system on the level that a DAP has to have and all of that. So it's just kind of like, how are you going to use this? What's the source device? How do you plan to use it? I think that's something you need to figure out first before you choose to go the DAP route or the transportable route, all of that. So those are things to keep in mind. All right. So let me just kind of wrap this up here, because I like this thing quite a bit. I think it's a pretty solid unit for the price and definitely the size. It has a lot of use flexibility. And so if you are just system building and you're starting out and you're like, I want a nice desk system, but I also want a good on-the-go option, like, this can be a really good placeholder for you for a while, where it is very competent as a desktop DAC, and it also is an excellent transportable option. So, I mean, you can get that two birds with one stone idea kind of going on here. I think that will be very attractive to the right kind of user. Okay, but even so, again, competent, very capable as a 2-channel and desktop DAC there in the mid-fi tier. Excellent transportable option and all of that. Lots of use case flexibility. The equalization features in here, I think, are people are really going to like. I will do a much more thorough sonic comparison and where this stacks up with other DACs near its price range here in the very near future. So stay tuned for that. I also will not be keeping this Mojo 2 because I have the Hugo 2 around. And as I've kind of alluded to throughout the course of the review here, this is just a much better sounding unit. Like, it's not at all on the go. I mean, it's kind of big and chunky for on the go, and it's got the 2Go streamer attached to it. So, I mean, difference in size here is quite obvious, and so forth. The Hugo 2 does allow you to like have multiple inputs in use at once and then switch between the two of them, or between them, which this does not because of the hierarchy thing. But the sound from the Hugo 2 is just, it's a lot more detailed. It's got a lot more resolution in it. It has a little bit more natural timbre and like more holographic spatial presentation than the Mojo 2 does. But again, we should expect that. It's appropriate difference for the price and that sort of thing. But there's the comparison that I promised there. So then just back to wrapping this up here. Excellent device, strong for 2-channel and desktop situations, also strong for on the go. Do you want this or do you want a DAC is going to depend on how you're sourcing your music. Do you need local files, or are you plugging this into another device that is the source of your music? Okay, that I think is the biggest consideration to go with there. And then again, like the flexibility here and the equalization, there's a lot of good stuff to like about this one, and it holds its own as a DAC. And I will do a more detailed, okay, as I said, there are a more detailed comparison of where this fits into the market as a DAC here very soon. So stay tuned for that. I will not be keeping this Mojo 2 though, because I have the Hugo 2 around. So I will probably be listing it for sale somewhere if someone doesn't buy it before I get a chance to do that. Okay, and that's just because I don't need it. Not because it's any good and not because I don't recommend it. It's just that I don't need it and I have enough stuff around. So let's get this, move this one on and get something else in here to review. So I am Wave Theory. Thanks for watching my review of the Mojo 2. If you have not subscribed yet, please do that. Leave a like, leave a comment, check out my PayPal, my Patreon. Generally do those things you do to support YouTube channels. So thanks again for watching, and as always, enjoy the music.